Hi again, everyone. I'm olliemathews. This is Societal Narcissism. This video is sponsored by a contribution from Corey. Corey gives a monthly contribution, which I'll use for this video. Before I get to the content, please go to the description box, click on the Rumble link. I ask everybody to watch over there as I'm still monetized, and it'll help out with the channel. On to the video. So,
Gen Z boss and a mini, Gen Z boss and a mini, itty bitty titties and a ball, itty bitty titties and a ball, 5'3" and an attitude, 5'3" and an attitude, secret product in the trench, secret product in the trench, new friend green and a sneaky link, new friend green and a sneaky link, fake 10 hands in a hoop, fake 10 hands in a hoop.
this video, these girls, was one of the major catalysts that got Trump reelected. This video it was everywhere last summer. And it was everywhere because it just so encapsulates the work experience of 2025. These boss babes ruining a business, not having any idea how to run a business. You could tell no work gets done there. And any work that does get done is being done by the male employees. But yet, here we go. We're doing TikTok dances and, we're reliving middle school in the workplace. It's the HR human resource mentality. It's the feminization of the workplace. It's the feminization of society. How did we get here? So, came across this article yesterday. It was just, I think it was just printed. It was just, October 16th. So it was released yesterday. Came across it yesterday. The last 2 days I had a massive migraine. It finally just lifted. So that's where I've been. But I came across this article that I'm going to read through, and it really just nails it. The Great Feminization by Helen Andrews. Helen Andrews. This is a woman I follow on X. Very conservative. I believe she's like an economist or definitely a professor of some sort. So I probably should know more about her back history, but she's very based. She put this out. She put out this article yesterday that I want to read through. In 2019, I read an article about Larry Summers and Harvard that changed the way I look at the world. The author, writing under the pseudonym Jay Stone, argued that the day Larry Summers resigned as president of Harvard University marked a turning point in our culture. The entire woke era could be exploited from that moment. From the details of how Summers was canceled, and most of all, who did the canceling? Women. It's always women. It's always female-driven. The basic facts of Summers' case were familiar to me. On January 14th, 2005, at a conference on diversifying the science and engineering workforce, Larry Summers gave a talk that was supposed to be off the record. In it, he said that female underrepresentation in hard sciences was partly due to different availability of aptitude at high end, as well as a taste differences between men and women, not attributable to socialization. Men are better suited for these fields mentally. That's basically what he was saying. Some female professors in attendance were offended and sent his remarks to a reporter in defiance of the off-the-record rule. Of course, because if they think that they get to decide what's on and off the record. They get to decide when they get to violate that. If they feel you've broken one of their commandments, then they could do whatever they want. Coincidentally, 2005, that is the exact time that I had to go through diversity training at Macy's. It was the exact time period. So this is when the push was. The ensuing scandal led to a no-confidence vote by the Harvard faculty and, eventually, Summers' resignation. The essay argued that it wasn't just that women had canceled the president of Harvard, it was that they canceled him in a very feminine way. They made emotional appeals rather than logical arguments. When he started talking about innate differences in aptitude between men and women, I couldn't just breathe because this kind of bias makes me physically ill, says Nancy Hopkins, a biologist at MIT. Well, how are you a scientist if words can make you ill? I mean, oh, you're physically ill, so then okay, logic is out the window. We'll just go with how you with your feelings. That is the feminization of society in the workplace. That's how you get to feelings over results. Summers made a public statement clarifying his remarks, and then another, and then a third, with the apology more insistent each time. You never apologize. This is why you never apologize. You stick to your guns. You double down. You triple down. Because once you admit fault or blame, they got you. Experts chimed in to declare that everything Summers had said about sex differences was within the scientific mainstream. These rational appeals had no effects on the mob hysteria. Because women are always looking to govern and rule and manage from the outlier. They are trying to prove something with a massive swing, with a massive home run. Swing for the fences. Swing away, Merrill. Swing away. Instead of doing the work of taking the rational and logical approach. Not all women, just most of you. Sorry, not sorry. This cancellation was feminine, the essay argued, because all cancellations are feminine. Cancel culture is simply what women do whenever there are enough of them in a given organization or field. Yeah. Cancel culture is just sending you to your room. Go to your room. And I don't got to tell you why. That is the great feminization thesis, which the same author later elaborated upon at book length. Everything you think of as wokeness is simply a euphemism of demographic feminization. The explanatory power of this simple thesis was incredible. It really did unlock secrets of the era we are living in. Wokeness is not a new ideology, an outgrowth of Marxism, or a result of post-Obama disillusionment. It is simply feminine patterns of behavior applied to institutions where women were few in number until recently. How did I not see it before? Possibly because, like most people, I think feminization as something that happened in the past before I was born. When I think about women in the legal profession, for example, we think of the first women to attend law school, 1869, the first woman to argue a case before the Supreme Court, 1880, or the first female Supreme Court justice, 1981. A much more important tipping point is when law schools became majority female, which occurred in 2016, or when law firm associates became majority female, which occurred in 2023. When Sarah Day O'Connor was appointed to the High Court, only 5% of judges were female. Today, women are 33% of judges in America and 63% of the judges appointed by President Joe Biden. Don't think that's not biting us in the ass. The same trajectory can be seen in many professions. A pioneering generation of women in the 1960s and 70s, increasing female representation through the 80s and 90s, and gender parity finally arriving, at least in the younger cohorts, in the 2010s or 2020s. In 1974, only 10% of New York Times reporters were female. The New York Times staff became majority female in 2018, and today the female share is 55%. And they don't even need to be a majority. They don't even need to be the majority to take over. Because when all you got to do is get a couple key departments, a couple key jobs, i.e. HR, the legal department, the human resource department is just an extension of the legal department, which women have been attending law school since 1869. All you need is one. All you need is one, with the power to bring lawsuits and the power to impose their will. And you get what you get. And now it's even worse. The same trajectory can be seen in many professions. A pioneering generation of women in the 1960s and 70s, increasing female. Oh wait, did I already read that? No, increasing female representation through the 80s and 90s, and I did read this one already. I'm sorry. All right. Medical schools became majority female in 2019. Women became a majority of the college-educated workforce nationwide in 2019. Women became a majority of college instructors in 2023. Women are not yet a majority of managers in America, but they might be soon, as they are now 46%. I mean, they already got it. I mean, that's more than enough than just the physical. Then now it's like, is the number above 50%? They got it. Because they've been running the human resources department for 30 years. They've been in charge of the hiring. So the men they've been hiring aren't the men that are going to be standing up to them en masse. So the timing fits. Wokeness arose around the same time that many important institutions tipped demographically from majority male to majority female. The substance fits too. Everything you think of as wokeness involves prioritizing the feminine over the masculine, empathy over rationality, safety over risk, cohesion over competition. Other writers who have proposed their own versions of the great feminization theory, such as Noah Carl or Bo Weingart or Corey Clark, who look at feminization's effects on academia over survey data showing sex differences in political values. One survey, for example, found that 71% of men said protecting free speech was more important than preserving a cohesive society, and 59% of women said the opposite. The most relevant differences are not about individuals, but about groups. In my experience, individuals are unique, and you come across outliers who defy stereotypes every day. And there it is, outliers. And that's what women are always looking for. They're always looking to manage and govern and run their lives to the outliers. But groups of men and women display consistent differences, which makes sense if you think about it statistically. A random woman might be taller than a random man, but a group of 10 random women is very unlikely to have an average height greater than a group of 10 men. The larger the group of people, the more likely it is to conform to statistical averages. Female group dynamics favor consensus and cooperation. Men order each other around, but women can only suggest and persuade. Passive aggressiveness. Any criticism or negative statement, if it absolutely must be expressed, needs to be buried in layers of compliments. The outcome of a discussion, and it still won't matter, because the only thing they're going to hear is the criticism. They can't be criticized. They can't handle it. The outcome of a discussion is less important than the fact that the discussion was held and everybody participated in it. Yep, I tried. The most important sex difference in group dynamics is attitude to conflict. In short, men wage conflict openly while women covertly undermine or ostracize their enemies. Barry Weiss, in her letter of resignation from the New York Times, described how colleagues referred to her in internal Slack messages as a racist, a Nazi, and a bigot. This is the most feminine part. Colleagues perceived to be friendly with me were badgered by coworkers. That's the cheerleader effect. Weiss once asked a colleague at the Times opinion desk to get coffee with her. The journalist, a biracial woman who wrote frequently about race, refused to meet. This was a failure to meet the standards of basic professionalism, obviously. It was also very feminine. Men tend to be better at compartmentalizing than women, and wokeness was, in many ways, a society-wide failure to compartmentalize. Traditionally, an individual doctor might have opinions on the political issues of the day, but he regarded it as a professional duty to keep his opinions out of the examination room. Now that medicine has become more feminized, doctors wear pins and lanyards expressing views on controversial issues from gay rights to Gaza. They even bring the credibility of their profession to bear on political fads, as when doctors said Black Lives Matter protests could continue in violation of COVID lockdowns because racism was a public health emergency. And they also knew the lockdowns were bullshit. They also knew COVID wasn't what they were making it out to be. How did they know it? Because they had enough time to film fucking TikTok dances through the empty halls of the goddamn hospitals. That's how they knew. One book that helped me put the pieces together was Warriors and Worriers: The Survival of the Sexes by psychology professor Joyce Benenson. She theorizes that men developed group dynamics optimized for war, while women developed group dynamics optimized for protecting their offspring. This is exactly the point I have been making. These habits formed in the midst of prehistory explain why experimenters in a modern psychology lab, in a study that Benenson cites, observed that a group of men given a task will jockey for talking time, disagree loudly, then cheerfully relay a solution to the experimenter. A group of women given the same task will politely inquire about one another's personal backgrounds and relationships, accompanied by much eye contact, smiling, and turn-taking, and pay little attention to the task that the experimenter presented, because what they're doing is they're looking for any reason why they can invalidate your argument. Oh, well, you're so-and-so with your home, and that has nothing to do with the issue at hand, but they're just looking for a way to invalidate anything that comes out. I don't have to listen to anything you say because X, Y, and Z. The point of the war is to settle disputes between tribes, but it works only if peace is restored after the dispute is settled. Men therefore develop methods for reconciling with opponents and learning to live in peace with people they were fighting yesterday. Females, even in primate species, are slower to reconcile than males. That is because women's conflicts were traditionally within the tribe over scarce resources, to be resolved not by open conflict, but by covert competition with rivals with no clear terminus. All these observations match my observations of wokeness. But soon the happy thrill of discovering a new theory eventually gave way to a sinking feeling. If wokeness is really the result of the great feminization, then the eruption of insanity in 2020 was just a small taste of what the future holds. Imagine what will happen as the remaining men age out of these society-shaping professions and the younger, more feminized generations take full control. They can never take, but understand something. Women can never take full control. Who's going to build their roads, their buildings, fix their cars, build their cars, build the airplane? Who's going to do all that? Because they cannot. What they have done is they have painted themselves into a corner which I told everybody was coming, because when you're a woke parent trying to raise your kids, the kids are going to get to an age, especially the boys are going to get to an age where it's going to be uncool to be like your parents and to be like your teachers. Okay, it was real easy to be against your parents and your teachers in my generation because they all thought from a pretty conservative standpoint. So when your teachers are woke and your parents are woke, okay, and the way they used to be able to get you in my generation and generations before that is when you got to college. College is when the indoctrination started, all that liberal indoctrination started. And then it was the way to turn on the parents there. But no, it's all the same. So now what you're seeing is these kids going conservative in middle school, in high school, and now in college, okay? Because that's the cool, easiest way to rebel against your parents. And the problem the parents, the wokesters, have is The kids are right. They can out debate them because they're coming from logic and reasoning. They've painted themselves into a corner. The threat posed by wokeness can be large or small depending on the industry. It's sad that English departments are all feminized now, but most people's daily lives are unaffected by it. Other fields matter more. You might not be a journalist, but you live in a country where what gets written in the New York Times determines what is publicly accepted as truth. If the Times becomes a place where in-group consensus can suppress unpopular facts, more so than it already does, that affects every citizen. The field that frightens me the most is the law. All of us depend on a functioning legal system, and to be blunt, the rule of law will not survive the legal profession becoming majority female. It already isn't. This is why I talk about the judiciary so frequently, because they have control of it, and we better get it back quick. Otherwise, the country's in for a real bad crossroad. The rule of law is not just about writing rules down. It means following them even when they yield an outcome that tug at your heartstrings or runs contrary to your gut sense of which party is more sympathetic. A feminized legal system might resemble the Title IX courts for sexual assault on college campuses established in 2011 under President Obama. These proceedings were governed by written rules, and so technically could be said to operate under the rule of law. But they lacked many of the safeguards that our legal system holds sacred, such as the right to confront your accuser, the right to know what crime you're accused of, the fundamental concept that guilt should depend on objective circumstances knowable by both parties, not in how one party feels about an act in retrospect. These protections were abolished because the people who made these rules sympathized with the accusers, who are mostly women, and not with the accused, who are mostly men. And it also absolves them of having to prove anything. It absolves them of having to prove fact. And it absolves them of having to confront the facts that go against their narrative. Now they don't even have to look at the evidence. Societal narcissism. These two approaches to the law clash vividly in the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation hearings. The masculine population was that if Christine Blasey Ford can't provide any concrete evidence that she and Kavanaugh were ever in the same room together, her accusations of rape cannot be allowed to ruin his life. The feminine position was that her self-evident emotional response was itself a kind of credibility that the Senate committee must respect, regardless of the fact that most allegations turn out to be false. If the legal profession becomes majority female, I expect to see the ethos of Title IX tribunals and the Kavanaugh hearings spread. Judges will bend the rules for favored groups and enforce them rigorously on disfavored groups, as already occurred to a worrying extent. It was possible to believe back in 1970 that introducing women to the legal profession in large numbers would have only a minor effect. That belief is no longer sustainable. The changes will be massive. They already are. Oddly enough, both sides of the political spectrum agree on what those changes will be. The only disagreement is over whether they will be a good thing or a bad thing. Dahlia Lithwick opens her book. I know with the names. Let it go, guy. Some of you got to let it go. Plenty of time to talk about it. This isn't the video. Dahlia Lithwick opens up her book, Lady Justice, Women, the Law, the Battle to Save America, with a scene from the Supreme Court in 2016 during oral arguments over a Texas abortion law. 3 female justices, Ginsburg, Sotomayor, and Kagan, ignored the formal time limits, talked exuberantly over their male colleagues. Lithwick celebrated this as an explosion of bottled-up judicial girl power that afforded America a glimpse of what genuine gender parity or near parity might have meant for future women in powerful legal institutions. So basically what these women justices are doing is tearing up a Waffle House. Instead Instead, it's the Supreme Court. When you see these incidents, of these freakouts in a Waffle House, in a Chipotle, in a McDonald's, just screaming and screaming and screaming and screaming, it's the same exact mentality. It's coming from the same thinking. Lithwick lauds women for their irreverent attitude with the law's formalities, which, after all, originated in an era of oppression and white supremacy. The American legal system was fundamentally a machine built to privilege propertied white men, Lithwick writes, but it's the only thing going, and you work with what you have. Those who view the law as a patriarchal relic can be expected to treat it instrumentally. If that ethos comes to prevail throughout the legal systems, then the trappings will look the same, but a revolution will have occurred. The great feminization is truly unprecedented. Other civilizations have given women the vote, granted them property rights, or let them inherit thrones of empires. No civilization in human history has ever experimented with letting women control so many vital institutions of our society, from political parties to universities to our largest businesses. Even where women do not hold the top spots, women set the tone in these organizations, such that a male CEO must operate within the limits set by his human resources VP. That is exactly the point I made earlier. They didn't need to take over the entire company. They only needed to get into human resources and the legal department. That's it. Once they got in there, it was game over. Because once they got in there, that's when they changed the name from personnel to human resources. Human resources, what does that even mean? We assume these institutions will continue to function under these completely novel circumstances, but what are the grounds for that assumption? The problem is not that women are less talented than men, or even that female modes of interaction are inferior in any objective sense. The problem is that female modes of interaction are not well suited for accomplishing the goals of many major institutions. You can have an academia that is majority female, but it will be, as majority female departments in today's university already are, oriented toward other goals than open debate and unfettered pursuit of truth. And if your academia doesn't pursue truth, what good is it? If your journalists aren't prickly individualists who don't mind alienating people, what good are they? If a business loses its swashbuckling spirit and becomes a feminized, inward-focused bureaucracy, will it not stagnate? Of course it will. Because women are on the, well, at least you tried. At least you tried. Don't worry about the result. But in business and in these institutions, it's all result-based. If the great feminization poses a threat to civilization, the question becomes whether there is anything we can do about it. The answer depends on why you think it occurred in the first place. There are many people who think the great feminization is a naturally occurring phenomenon. Women are finally given a chance to compete with men, and it turned out they were just better. That is why there are so many women in our newsrooms running our political parties and managing our corporations. Ross Duhat described this line of thinking in an interview this year with Jonathan Kieperman, a.k.a. Lomez, on a right-wing publisher who helped popularize the term the longhouse as a metaphor for feminization. Men are complaining that women are impressing them. Isn't the longhouse just a long male whine about a failure to adequately compete? Duhat asked, maybe you should suck it up and actually compete on the ground that we have in the 21st century. And what grounds is that? Who can whine the most? Who can complain the most and not get anything accomplished? Yeah, that's what Duhat is saying. This is what feminists think happened, but they are wrong. Feminization is not an organic result of women outcompeting men. It's an artificial result of social engineering, and if we take our thumb off the scale, it will collapse within a generation. No, it'll collapse within a year. A generation, it wouldn't even last a year. They would tear each other apart. The most obvious thumb on scale is anti-discrimination law. It is illegal to employ too few women at your company if women are underrepresented, especially in your higher management. That is a lawsuit waiting to happen. As the result, employers give women jobs and promotions they would not otherwise have gotten simply in order to keep their numbers up. It is rational for them to do this because the consequences for failing to do so can be dire. Texaco, Goldman Sachs, Novartis, and Coca-Cola are among the companies that have paid nine-figure settlements in response to lawsuits alleging bias against women in hiring and promotions. No manager wants to be the person who cost his company $200 million in a gender discrimination lawsuit. Anti-discrimination law requires that every workplace be feminized. A landmark case in 1991 found that pinup posters on the wall of a shipyard constituted a hostile work environment for women, and that principle has grown to encompass many forms of masculine conduct. Dozens of Silicon Valley companies have been hit with lawsuits alleging frat boy culture or toxic bro culture, and a law firm specializing in these suits brags of settlements ranging from $450,000 to $8 million. Women can sue their bosses for running a workplace that feels like a fraternity house, but men can't sue when their workplace feels like a Montessori kindergarten. Naturally, employers err on the side of making the office softer. So if women are thriving more in the modern workplace, is that really because they are out competing men, or is it because the rules have been changed to favor them? And who's the one changing the rules? They are, because they infiltrated the legal and HR departments. A lot can be inferred from the way that feminization tends to increase over time. Once institutions reach a 50-50 split, they tend to blow past gender parity and become more and more female. Since 2016, law schools have gotten a bit more female every year. In 2024, there were 56% female. Psychology, once a predominantly male field, is now overwhelmingly female, with 75% of psychology doctorates going to women. Institutions seem to have a tipping point after which they become more and more feminized. That does not look like women outperforming men. It looks like women driving men away by imposing feminine norms on previously male institutions and refusing to hire men they see as a threat to them. They control human resources. They control who gets hired. So any type of man they hired is going to be one they can dominate, who is feminine like them. Son husbands, women in men's bodies. What man wants to work in a field where his traits are not welcome? What self-respecting male graduate student would pursue a career in academia when his peers will ostracize him for stating his disagreements too bluntly or espousing a controversial opinion? In September, I gave a speech at the National Conservatism Conference along the lines of the essay above. I was apprehensive about putting forward the great feminization thesis in such a public forum. It is still controversial, even in conservative circles, to say that there are too many women in a given field, or that women in large numbers can transform institutions beyond recognition in ways that make them cease to function well. I made sure to express my argument in the most neutral way possible. Well, it's kind of tough because you are also anti-19th Amendment, so they know where you're coming from, Helen. I made sure to express my argument in the most neutral way possible. To my surprise, the response was overwhelming. Within a few weeks, the video of the speech had gotten over 100,000 views on YouTube and become one of the most viewed speeches in the history of the National Conservatism Conference. It is good that people are receptive to the argument because our window to do something about the great feminization is closing. There are leading indicators and lagging indicators of feminization, and we are currently at the in-between stage where law schools are majority female, but the federal bench is still majority male. In a few decades, the gender shift will have reached its natural conclusion. Many people think wokeness is over, slain by the vibe shift. But if wokeness is the result of demographic feminization, then it will never be over as long as the demographics remain unchanged. As a woman myself, I'm grateful for the opportunities I have to pursue a career in writing and editing. Thankfully, I don't think solving the feminization problem requires us to shut any doors in women's faces. We simply have to restore fair rules. Right now, we have a nominally merit, meritocratic system in which it is illegal for women to lose. Let's make hiring meritocratic in substance, not just name, and we will see how it shakes out. Good luck doing that with women still there. It's not going to happen. Make it legal to have a masculine office culture again. Remove the HR lady's veto power. I think people will be surprised to discover how much of our current feminization is attributable to institutional changes like the advent of HR, which were brought about by legal challenges and which legal changes can reverse. Because after all, I am not just a woman, I am also someone with a lot of disagreeable opinions who will find it hard to flourish if society becomes more conflict averse and consensus driven. I'm the mother of sons who will never reach their full potential if they have to grow up in a feminized world. We all are, dependent on institutions like the legal system, scientific research, and democratic politics that support the American way of life, and we will all suffer if they cease to perform the tasks they were designed to do. Helen Andrews is the author of Boomers, the Men and Women Who Promised Freedom and Delivered Disaster. In case you were wondering, is she based or not?
Gen Z bus and a mini. Gen Z bus and a mini. Itty bitty titties and a bulb. Itty bitty titties and a bulb. 5'3" and an attitude. 5'3" and an attitude. Secret product in the trench. Secret product in the trench. New friend green and a sneaky link. New friend green and a sneaky link. Fake 10 hands in a hoop. Fake 10 hands in a hoop.
Feelings over results, people. That's why we're in a feminized society, and that's why it's bad. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you, Corey, for the contribution. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, something you want to expose, you'd like to set up a Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you. Without you guys, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with either the Cash App, Zelle, PayPal, and email links in the description box below. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. Also, be sure to subscribe to both my channels on Rumble. If you haven't watched the video over there, please do. Even a click helps. Follow me on X and Telegram as well. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been Societal Narcissism. Take care, everyone.